Hello everyone. Welcome to the Model Express channel. This video is finally finished. It's a comparison of 3 manufacturers of Hi-Nu Gundams currently on the market, and it's finally here for you. When the GL was released a while ago, some friends asked me to do a review. It wasn't that I didn't want to, but I had to return it to the seller and get a replacement. Parts were missing and some were damaged. The GL doesn't even deserve a separate review video. Now, let's compare the products from the 3 manufacturers. First, let's look at the outer packaging. GL wins because the cover art is really good. ZJ's box is the worst. Firstly, the cover art isn't as good as GL's, and secondly, the material isn't as good as changlong's. Next up is a comparison of the model parts. Before that, I'd like to mention that many of the models were purchased at my own expense, so please follow my channel. Likes and shares are very important to me. Thank you for your support. Let's take a closer look at the quality of GL's parts. First, the gold and silver parts don't use a pre-painted finish. This is definitely inferior to the other 2 manufacturers. Also, the watermarks are particularly noticeable, especially on the silver parts. However, one positive point is that GL provided a separate water decal and packaged it separately. Although they didn't include regular stickers, the quality of the water decals is quite good. The decals on the GL Hi-Nu this time are really clear. Next, let's compare the instruction manuals. If we only look at the appearance, GL is far ahead. Then, let's compare the printing clarity of the 3 companies. It's very obvious that GL's instruction manual is printed much clearer than the other 2. Changlong is the worst. Next, let's compare the frame instructions. GL's is still clearer. However, good product quality is the most important factor. Next up is a comparison of the mask parts. Interestingly, a detailed comparison is essential, and it's immediately clear which one is inferior. Are the 3 facet lines on GL's mask equal signs? That's hilarious. While Changlong uses modified facet lines, they're perfectly acceptable. ZJ's facet lines below are rather blurry and lack sharpness. Next, let's look at the details of the head. It's clear that Changlong is far superior. However, in terms of detail rendering, GL's details are not as clear. The comparison of the antennas further illustrates the point. Changlong's sharpness is quite good, but extending the antenna length makes it look a bit ugly. ZJ's antenna tip lacks sharpness, and the details are not clearly defined. GL's biggest problem is that the parts have virtually no sharpness whatsoever. The sharpness of Changlong's collar parts is still excellent. However, Changlong's collar parts have a detail at the front, which the other 2 brands completely lack. GL's sharpness is so poor that I don't even want to talk about it anymore. A comparison of the gold parts from the 3 brands. GL can really be thrown away. Zooming in for a detailed comparison of the evil parts, the paint finishes of Changlong and ZJ products are basically the same, but Changlong's gold looks slightly better. The same applies to the silver parts. The water ripples on the GL parts are far too obvious. However, you can see that ZJ's silver parts are full of detail. GL and Changlong have both cut back on this aspect, so ZJ is more faithful to Bandai in this respect. Moreover, the panel lines on ZJ's parts are much finer than those of the other 2 brands. ZJ has cut back on the details of the rocket launcher part, omitting the 4 small nail details. The blue parts on the backpack wings also showed some missing details. ZJ and GJ reproduced the Bandai's details in this area, while Changlong's were missing. After that, GL's parts were indeed of poor quality. The detail on the blue chest plate is roughly the same across all 3 brands. ZJ's reproduction of the original details is quite accurate, while Changlong and GL have some omissions. In terms of the blue parts, ZJ's result is superior to the other 2. The blue parts on the knee still have some missing details. ZJ's groove has a noticeable difference in height, while the other 2 are not as obvious. Even the blue soles show subtle differences. You can see the square details on the parts, and the 3 manufacturers do it differently. In terms of sharpness, ZJ is much better than the other 2. Comparing the light purple parts, it's clear that the colors of these 3 brands are different. The lightest is ZJ, and the darkest is Changlong. A comparison of the shield parts shows that ZJ's panel lines are the finest, while Changlong's are the coarsest. Regarding the panel lines on the lower barrel, ZJ's are the best, followed by changlong's. ZJ still does the best job with the detailed panel lines on the inside of the front armor. Changlong is simply indescribable. It's practically devoid of detail, completely blurred into a mess. GL isn't much better. It's also very blurry. Regarding the details of the chest skeleton, ZJ's version has a screw detail that perfectly replicates the original Bandai version, while GL's version lacks this detail. I doubt anyone else could create such a detailed comparison. The details of the chest frame differ between the three manufacturers, especially along the left and right edges. The cockpit details also vary slightly among the three manufacturers. I can only say that for the KO version, no manufacturer can match the level of detail found in the original. There are also significant differences in the details of the lower air intake grille. ZJ made the most detailed and accurate depictions of the wing skeleton parts. Changlong and GL's depictions are noticeably lacking. The thigh bone structure also has the same problem. Overall, Changlong has the most issues with missing details. GL's unibody parts are truly unibody, which is quite impressive. Changlong's, on the other hand, is a two-piece design, and ZJ has absolutely no idea what it is. When the skeletons of the three manatees are placed side by side, the difference in quality is immediately apparent. GL can practically be out of the running. ZJ and Changlong, however, are evenly matched in terms of the overall feel of the skeleton. Comparing the lower body skeletons, GL's product is beyond blurry. It's simply incomparable to the other two. Comparing the upper body frames, GL's arm frames are relatively loose and tend to slip off after assembly. Changlong and ZJ are both quite sturdy, but the gaps in Changlong's forearms are much larger than ZJ's. From an assembly perspective, GL's is better. After installing the outer armor, in terms of overall appearance, I personally prefer ZJ's product. Firstly, the knees of the Changlong model have been redesigned, not replicating the original Bandai design, as modifications aren't acceptable to all players. If it were a simple recreation of the original Bandai, almost everyone would be satisfied. While GL has a matte finish throughout, compared to the other two brands, it's not in the same league visually. What are your thoughts on the appearance and product evaluation? Please leave a comment. Aside from the price, GL's product is simply incomparable to the other two brands. I also need to clarify that I delayed filming the GL product twice. First because the head monitor was missing, and second because a part broke and had to be replaced. Therefore, I declare GL's product obsolete at this point. Please don't consider buying GL products. Now let's take a look at the details of the model's appearance. First, let's talk about the heads. You can judge for yourselves how you feel. I really don't want to say much more. All three heads have gaps, but Changlong's gap is covered by blue parts. ZJ's eyes are different sizes, and GL's mask is really ugly. Changlong has cute, big eyes, but since it's longer, it's still acceptable. The green monitor on Changlong's head is perfectly sealed, while GL's monitor is visible even with a gap, but ZJ's monitor is completely invisible. Next is the Vulcan cannon on the head. Both Changlong and GL have it, and although it's not very obvious, there are still some details. ZJ's Vulcan cannon is completely invisible. Looking at the head from the side, ZJ has the largest gap. Next is GL, while Changlong's gap is relatively small. Looking at the details on the back of the head, GL shows the most detail, followed by Changlong, while ZJ shows the least detail. Next, we compared the chest modules. GL's product was practically seamless, but the edges of the parts had significant burrs. Looking closely, the quality of GL's parts was truly poor. Besides the burrs, the sprue marks were also very difficult to remove. Overall, GL's quality was really bad, except for the lack of gaps. Putting the chest parts of the three manufacturers side by side, which do you think is the best? I choose Changlong. In the side-by-side comparison, ZJ's gaps are very obvious, with huge gaps clearly visible. Furthermore, ZJ's silver parts easily fall off, a problem completely absent in the other two manufacturers' products. The back comparison shows that the three products are basically the same. From a distance, it's almost impossible to see any difference. Overall, ZJ's hip joints look better. The paint finish and component quality of the silver parts are indeed better than the other two brands. At least the set I received is acceptable. Changlong ranks second. The component quality is decent, although the panel detail is slightly inferior to ZJ's product. GL is the product that comes out on top, but it does have its merits. Its tightness is the best of the three. No matter how violently you shake it, the parts don't fall off. However, the white parts at the bottom are too loose, causing the hip joint buckle to not hold securely, making it easy for the legs to become loose when posing. It's surprising that GL made such a poor job with such an important component. Compared to the other two brands, the front skirt armor of the Changlong brand is relatively loose, mainly because the silver parts at the bottom of the front skirt armor are particularly loose. I suggest simply gluing them in place. The C-shaped buckles on the rear skirt armor are also very loose. The skirt armor unfolds without any problems, but the C-shaped buckles are just too loose. While ZJ's overall appearance is decent, it also has the most problems. Firstly, the ball joints on the side skirt armor are very prone to falling off, even when fully installed. The lateral opening structure of the skirt armor is also very tight. The C-shaped buckles on this joint are overly tight and easily damaged. Therefore, none of these three manufacturers' skirts are truly excellent. Each has its own fatal flaws. Comparing the left arms, GL's shoulder joint is noticeably blurry and lacks sharpness. However, GL's left arm has the fewest gaps among the three, achieving a very tight seal. The other two brands, due to pre-painting, have very noticeable gaps between the silver and white parts, requiring some adjustments by the player. ZJ's attention to detail differs from the other two brands. Looking at the left arm from the front, the GL is really bad. Let's look at the damping feel when bending the arm. First, the GL's damping is clearly insufficient. Looking at the Changlong, it's a bit tighter than the GL. Finally, let's look at ZJ's. The elbow joint is the most solid. The damping is also very good. It's not something that can be easily moved using softer parts. Next, let's look at the right arm, mainly to demonstrate the linkage effect of the arm cannon. First, the GL's right arm has a relatively smooth linkage. Changlong will feel a noticeable damping. Finally, the ZJ's right arm. This linkage mechanism is so strong that it's almost impossible to unfold the arm cannon without applying force. On the shoulders, you can see that the silver paint jobs of Changlong and ZJ are quite good. GL's shoulder parts have assembly issues, with gaps that don't close properly. While both ZJ and Changlong's shoulder armor still have gaps, Changlong's gaps are significantly smaller. Furthermore, Changlong designed a concealed sprue gate, while ZJ did not, resulting in a significant difference in the treatment of the sprue gate. Next, let's compare the legs. From a distance, Changlong's difference is most noticeable because the knee's curve is different from other brands. GL didn't have pre-painted parts, so a comparison with the other two brands is impossible. In terms of part fit at the knee, ZJ is the worst, with very obvious and large gaps. Regarding the gaps at the thigh, Changlong's finishing is the best. GL's legs not only have poor part precision but also burrs on the edges. ZJ's parts are better than GL's. A comparison of the knees of the three manufacturers reveals that GL's silver hydraulic tubing is the most exposed. Changlong's is almost invisible. ZJ's is only slightly visible. From the front, we can see that GL's knee is positioned lower than the other two, and its internal anti-peeping components are functioning correctly. The anti-peeping components of the other two are essentially ineffective, with obvious holes exposed. The rear leg section is basically the same as ZJ's, but GL's appearance is really terrible. The mold line on the gray parts is especially noticeable. I really don't want to complain about GL anymore. No wonder I've had to exchange their products twice. If it weren't for Make the Video, I almost would have returned it. All three manufacturers require tools to deploy the outer armor, but the amount of force used varies. GL requires the most force. Deploying the outer armor is very difficult, especially the two white parts at the bottom, which require considerable effort to unfold. Changlong's outer armor unfolds relatively smoothly. Although tools are still needed, the armor can be easily pried open, making it a relatively effortless and simple operation. However, a problem remains. Once unfolded, the outer armor parts are not very secure. A slight tug can easily tear them off. It seems none of these three companies have put their hearts into their work. Finally, ZJ's outer armor unfolds better than GL's. However, it still requires a certain amount of force. While you need to pry it open, You also need to pay attention to the friction between the parts. Although it is as easy for parts to fall off as changlongs, the holding power between the parts is not as strong as changlongs. Regarding the details of the feet, ZJ is the most faithful to Bandai's design, but the parts don't fit together perfectly, which is inferior to the other two brands. It seems KO is prioritizing profit over quality. Let's first look at the GL and changlong backpacks. Due to the one-piece molded frame of the ZJ backpack, the funnels cannot be installed at all. Comparing the tightness of the funnel installation, the GL is the clear winner. Shaking the backpack, the GL's response is immediate. Even with considerable force, the funnels won't fall off. However, with the changlong, you can see that almost all the funnels have fallen off. In this respect, the GL truly surpasses the changlong. Although the GL's funnel connection is quite tight, the backpack's hinge is incredibly loose. In contrast, the changlong's hinge has no issues whatsoever. The ZJ backpack is indeed the most secure. I initially intended to install changlong's funnels on the ZJ backpack, but I found it impossible. The changlong funnels are a size too small. I also discovered another problem with the GL funnels, as they are also too small. This indicates that the ZJ funnels are a size too large. I didn't expect to discover such an unexpected problem while trying to piece together the funnels. Let's look at the fuel tanks first. The ZJ tank started to feel loose after only 3 days of assembly, even though the damping was excellent when it was first assembled. Next is the GL fuel tank, which has very good damping and is quite solid. Finally, the changlong tank is even more solid, with stronger damping than the GL. Finally, we swung the legs to test their support. First up was the GL. After shaking, the GL was indeed very firm. It was almost impossible to swing the legs without exerting force. Next up was changlong, and almost exactly as I expected, there was no suspense whatsoever. The looseness of his leg joints was truly exaggerated. I really don't know what to say. Finally, ZJ's legs, while not as exaggerated as changlong's after shaking, still can't compare to GL's firmness. Next is a comparison of the shields from the three manufacturers. From a distance, they look almost identical. However, the purple parts on the ZJ shield cannot be installed. The purple parts on the changlong shield have tolerance issues. Although they can be installed, they don't fit perfectly. In contrast, the GL shield has no tolerance problems at all, and the parts fit together very well. The beam rifles from the three manufacturers look almost identical from a distance, but upon closer inspection, the details in this area differ significantly. Secondly, ZJ's gray side part lacks the small protrusion, meaning it's impossible to remove once pushed into the gun body. Other parts also vary. I can only say the manufacturers should pay more attention to detail. Most critically, ZJ's beam rifle lacks a muzzle indentation. Not only is the Vulcan cannon missing a muzzle, but the beam rifle also lacks one. This laziness is blatant. Doesn't the manufacturer conduct quality control checks before shipping? I tested it with pliers, and it's actually a completely solid part, not sealed due to the injection molding process. I just want to say that problems always arise unexpectedly. The details of the three rocket launchers are the same, with basically no difference. The only difference is that the GL model has a small gray part. I've already returned and exchanged the GL model twice, and I'm too lazy to bother the seller again over such a small part. Okay, that concludes this comparison video. It's quite long and very detailed. If I had to choose, I'd pick between changlong and ZJ, but I'd lean towards ZJ because of its more detailed reproduction. Please subscribe to my channel, like and share. See you in the next video.